being here. Joining me in studio is Attorney General Mark Brnovich. Timing is everything, and just handed to me right before you walked in the studio is a statement from Secretary Mayorkas and the CDC ending of Title 42, which will be effective May 23rd of this year. How do you respond to this, and is there going to be a state response to this?
Well, thank you for having me on, Mike. It's great to be back in the studio. And look, I mean, you know that our office has been on the forefront of pushing back against the lawlessness of the Biden administration. We were off air talking about the case I argued at the end of February on the public charge rule that the Biden administration illegally withdrew. And so I sit there, and I've said this before, they've essentially incentivized and decriminalized illegal immigration. And one of the only things that we know that was working, that was preventing even a greater flood, was Title 42. And this was basically the Trump era policy that used, that public health exception to stop people, or it would force them to be deported before they could have an asylum hearing. So it was one of the major tools, one of the only tools we had left now to stop a bigger flood. I know from talking to the border sheriffs, they anticipate illegal immigration doubling if this is withdrawn. And we know that within the last year, more than 2 million people illegally entered this country. I mean, it's like the entire states of Alaska, Wyoming, and Vermont combined. I mean, so these are massive numbers. And all you got to do is go to like Scottsdale and Shea, and you can literally see your taxpayer dollars being used to house people that have broken the law, that come into the country illegally. The case I was arguing at the U.S. Supreme Court on the public charge dealt with giving benefit or welfare benefits to people that did not have legal status. And the case we just won last week in federal court was trying to get the Biden administration to deport people under Title 8 when you have a deportation order. There's more than 1 million people that are supposed to be deported. They're not. So I worry, because I know as a prosecutor, former gang prosecutor, former federal prosecutor, the situation at the border is a catastrophe. We have essentially ceded control of the southern border to the cartels. They're making a record amount of money, which I think will end up destabilizing Mexico. And we know that fentanyl is flooding into this country. We know methamphetamine is flooding into this country. And the price, for example, street price of a fentanyl pill has literally gone from about $20 a pill a year ago to about $5 a pill now. I mean, and that's because the supply is flooding our system. And that's why in places like Pima County, you see the biggest cause of death now amongst people that are under 21 is fentanyl, drug overdoses. Yeah. I mean, this is destroying our communities. It's making us less safe, and it's stretching our social safety net. So I don't know why or what the Biden administration's thoughts are doing, but literally every single thing they've done on the border has made our country less safe, more dangerous, and God forbid, I know now from intelligence report, there's people from the Middle East that are coming over, that are being released, that aren't being questioned, and, who knows what they want to do.
So let's shift, because there's so many topics I want to get to, and I'm glad you were here for this, because I was going to talk about this in a little while, but I definitely wanted your perspective. Let's talk about, for a moment, the lawsuit about the masks and airplanes. You've joined 20 other states. Where does that stand, and what grounds do you have to file it?
Well, we were using the fact that the CDC didn't follow the proper legal procedures, including the Administrative Procedures Act. It's kind of analogous to the lawsuit we filed against the Biden administration related to withdrawing the public charge rule. At the end of the day, I mean, I was the first attorney general in the entire country that filed a lawsuit over the vaccine mandates. And there's a lot of things the federal government is doing that are not consistent with the Constitution. And in this instance, with the mask mandates, I mean, I think it's not only inconsistent with the science, but it's inconsistent with federal law dealing with administrative procedures and how you implement rules and regulations and impose them on common carriers.
So let's shift to one more. The Department of Justice's letter that came in saying that they may be challenging the law in Arizona about transgender youth that was recently signed by the governor. And your response was, see you in court.
Yeah. We have been, the Biden administration has been a full employment act for our office and our lawyers, and whether it's initiating lawsuits over his failed policies or defending state common sense measures. There's a lawsuit filed just the other day, yesterday, and another one today on those election integrity measures, which we will be defending once again in court. They have to, all the way to the Supreme Court, as I did in Brnovich v. DNC last year. So my initial reaction to this is like, we've gotten to this place in society where it is absolutely crazy, like what's going on. I mean, there's a reason why we have different boys and girls sports, at least historically why we've had that. I find it puzzling that a U.S. Supreme Court justice or possible Supreme Court justice can't define what a boy or a girl is without going to a biologist. I mean, that's crazy. This is why common sense, someone here that grew up in Arizona, it's like common sense, normal people are like, this is crazy stuff. I mean, at some point, we need to acknowledge a man cannot have a baby. It doesn't matter how hard you want to try, Mike. You can't have a baby. You're not going to get pregnant. We have to acknowledge that there are biological differences. And even in sports, you have people that are changing, but they have a competitive advantage. I mean, if you're born a male, you have a bigger heart, and there's other biological advantages you have. I mean, there's a reason why they ban performance-enhancing drugs in football and baseball, because they don't want people to have that inherent advantage. And quite frankly, boys are bigger and stronger than women. There are biological differences between the sexes. And to me, as a parent, and both of my girls played sports growing up, I understand this issue very much so. And it's really mind-boggling to me that we have gotten to the point in society where the Biden administration is saying, Arizona, we are going to sue you over this law because you do not want boys playing girls sports. And I'm going to do everything I can, once again, to protect Arizona values, and I'm going to be in court against the Biden administration fighting to protect the law.
How many lawsuits have there been? How many lawsuits have you been a part of? Have you counted?
Just against Biden? Or are you including the Obama ones too?
Let's get a total.
I don't know.
Do you have any idea?
I honestly,
And what's your record?
Well, this is the funny thing, is there are times, like, for example, in the Brnovich v. DNC case, when the Court of Appeals, the Ninth Circuit, struck down those Arizona laws, and you saw a lot of people on the left saying, oh my gosh, look, the Arizona lost their case. And, the Ninth Circuit has never been friendly to Arizona, and it's never been friendly to conservatives in general. But then those cases end up going to the Supreme Court. And so literally, you look, within the last year, I argued a case to the U.S. Supreme Court. I argued another one at the U.S. Supreme Court this year, because I think that sometimes lower courts don't always get it right. And it's important. The rule of law is all about fighting all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court or fighting the state Supreme Court. And so there have been instances where, look at the case we have against the universities. That case ended up at the state Supreme Court now. We're waiting a decision on the state Supreme Court whether we can move forward on that. So it's important sometimes to keep in the fight, to be in the fight, and not be afraid of maybe a temporary setback, because it's all about long-term wise, what does the rule of law require, and making sure I'm doing everything I can to protect hardworking Arizona taxpayers and to protect Arizona values.
I appreciate the time, as always. It's tough to get a hold of you sometimes because you're so pulled so many different directions, but I really do appreciate you coming in and talking about these things, and I hope you'll come back.
Of course, Mike. It's great. Thank you very much.
All right, that's Attorney General Mark Brnovich joining us for a couple of moments. Coming up,